We have a few images to share with you. The two lots highlighted in pink are known as the proposed severed lots. So this is B101 and B102. And this is the retained land. So this means two applications were applied for with this land proposed to be retained. This is a similar image. This image identifies the minimum lot area of each lot. And now we have a map that our community planner has highlighted to demonstrate to the public and council the deficiencies. So a land use survey was completed by a professional surveying firm in order to demonstrate exactly what these sizes, dimensions, and setbacks are. So we've highlighted the areas that are deficient. So you can see here, I know you can't read these numbers, but this is to reflect that these three frontages do not meet the 40 meters. The acreages are just undersized, and then on this slide, we show where the deficiencies are for the minimum side yard setbacks. I'm sure a lot of you can recognize this property. I'll just get to the photos in a second. So the area on the left is currently zoned as agriculture in our zoning bylaw, and the area on the right is currently designated rural district in the county official plan. And I'm going to explain to you why we have conflicting zoning and designations, because that never happens. The reason is, and council will recall this very well, when the province had changed a lot of our official plan mapping a few years ago, they redesignated some parcels of property to rural and some parcels of property to agriculture. So until our new zoning bylaw is written, there's some areas where there's conflicting zoning. On a positive note, though, it does not stop severance applications from moving forward, or it doesn't hurt the landowner because we can bring them into compliance. So the proposed amendment conforms to the United Counties of SDNG official plan, as well as the provincial planning statement. So here's a series of photos of the properties, and you'll recognize them. When you're traveling on County Road 25, heading east of 34, you might recall three houses that are side by side, and they look like mobile homes that have been modified. And they're fairly close together when you're driving down the road. So these are images of what these existing houses look like. And when the property owner came to us and requested severance applications, we felt there was no reason for us not to support these applications, because they've been existing dwellings for many years, and it would allow them now to sell them as independent homes. It'll allow either the current tenants or future owners to be able to own their home outright as opposed to renting them. So this application was circulated to the United Counties of SDNG Transportation Department. They had no comments or concerns, and they did support the proposed severances. As they said, they're all existing developments with existing driveways. A sign was posted on the subject property, and an ad was also placed in the Seaway News, and we notified the abutting property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, and to date we have not received any comments from any member of the public regarding the proposed amendment. This zoning amendment will also be a decision of council in the future, as I mentioned, probably in March, and that's when we'll make a recommendation to council. So if there's any members of the public that wish to speak, please state your name and address, and we'll welcome your comments. Thank you.
Are there any comments from the public on this or clarifications? No? Any from around the table? Okay, so it will be received, and then we will have it come back to a future staff report for approval. So that's it for the public meeting portion of this agenda. If you wish to stay for the whole meeting, the next up is our auditing statements. So we're always excited about our finances, but you may not be, so you're free to leave. And have a good evening. So we will move into presentations and delegations, our 2024 audited financial statements, MNP. Mrs. McDonald, or Miss McDonald, sorry, if you wish to introduce our delegate.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm very happy to introduce Jamie Pollock from MNP. He's here this evening with our 2024 statements, and I'll let him share the good news about how that wrapped up. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Jamie Pollock. I'm a partner and chartered professional accountant with MNP, and I'm happy to be here tonight. Nice to see everyone, councillor members, mayor, CIO, and staff. I'll just go through some of the highlights of the financial statements. If there's any questions or concerns at any time, I'm more than happy to stop and go through them with you. These are your 2024 financial statements. And I'll just go through some of the highlights of our independent auditor's report. It is quite lengthy at a page and a half, but I'll just read the first two paragraphs. First of all, it is addressed to the members of council, inhabitants, and ratepayers of the corporation of the township of South Glengarry. We have audited the financial statements of the township, which comprise the statement of financial activities as of December 31st, 2024, and the statements of financial activities, changes in net financial assets, and cash flows for the year then ended, and notes to the financial statements, including a summary of significant accounting policies. In our opinion, the accompanying financial statements presents fairly in all material respects the financial position of the township as of December 31st, 2024, and the results of its operations, change in net financial assets, and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. So it's a clean audit opinion. That's what you want to hear from us as your auditors. The financial statements in our auditor's report is in draft, but we are in a position to issue our independent auditor's report once they are approved by council. Going through the financial statements, the statement of financial position, which is your balance sheet, it is at a particular point in time as of December 31st, 2024. Your total financial assets was $15.2 million compared to $12.9 million from the previous year, an increase of $2.3 million or 18%. The majority of that increase is in your cash position, which went up by $2.5 million from 23 to 24. Liabilities was $8.8 million compared to just over $8 million the previous year, an increase of $816,000 or 10%. Majority of that increase is in your accounts payable, which went up by $1.2 million, and that's due to the timing of trade payables, mainly with capital expenditures at the end of the year. One of the decrease was your deferred revenue in your obligatory reserve funds. You utilize a lot of those funds, which I will go through as a note, from your previous development charges and your gas tax funds that you utilize for your capital projects in 2024. And your non-financial assets, which include your tangible capital assets, recorded for accounting purposes at $63 million compared to $63.2 million. When you include inventory and prepaid expenses, your overall accumulated surplus at December 31st, 2024, just under $70 million compared to $68.7 million, an increase of $1.2 million or 1.8% from the previous year. Looking at your statement of financial activities, this is really your income statement. The middle column is your actuals, and the column on the left-hand side is the budget. Your actual amount of revenues for the year was $17.3 million compared to $16.4 million. Some of those increases was under taxation, which was higher by $200,000, and that is due to higher supplementary taxations than budgeted. Fees and service charges was $3.2 million, an increase of almost $500,000, and that's really mainly from water and sewer connections made during the year, plus recreation fees. Grants, $1.6 million, about the same as budgeted, and investment income, about $209,000 higher, which is because of your healthy bank balance and interest rates. You were able to earn a lot more interest income in 24. Going through expenses, total expenses was $17.7 million compared to budget of $17.6 million. Slightly higher, but the expenses itself has amortization expense, which is a non-cash item, and I'll go through a little bit more detail in a few minutes. And then other revenue related to capital, you had $1.6 million where you budgeted $2.6. You utilized about $100,000 less, but that's mainly because of timing of the projects. you didn't utilize as much of the grants that you were expected to receive, and you only recognized what you had to match those capital expenditures. So the surplus for the year, and this is according to public sector accounting standards, is 1.2 million, where you compare to 1.4 million the previous year. Now, it's quite interesting that the surplus is 1.247 million, because if you look at from an operating fund point of view, your overall surplus for the year, when you include your water, wastewater, and operations, was 1.240 million, with like $7,000 of this balance here. So you had an overall operating surplus for the year of 893,193, and water and wastewater surplus of 347,687. So both of those surpluses was transferred into their respective working fund reserves at the end of the year. So you had an overall great surplus of $1.2 million. Now, with the amortization expense, the actual is kind of distorted, but once you pulled out those non-cash items, you actually had a savings on your overall expenditures by $612,000 in a year. And those savings was really mainly from salaries and benefits and protections to persons and property, same in environmental services, plus $471,000 savings in your transportation services budget, in materials and services, consultant fees, and rental costs. While I mentioned there was less capital revenue, there was a lot less capital expenditures, which really kind of net itself off. And if there was any savings, they were placed back into the working funds at the end of the year. Just going to the statement of changes in net financial assets, overall there was an increase of 1.5 million. If you look at the middle column, which was your surplus for the year, 1.247 million, we add back the amortization, which is non-cash item, 3.5 million. You spent 3.4 million in capital during the year compared to a budget of 5 million, but it's slightly higher than the previous year. And really with those three changes, it brings you to your overall increase in your net financial assets of 1.5 million, which really translate to your increase in your cash balance at December 31st, 2024. So what does that all mean? Well, if I go to the statement of surplus, it means that you're actually in a very good, healthy financial position. When we break down your schedule of accumulated surplus, we look at your reserves at December 31st was 11.9 million compared to 10.5 million, overall increase of 1.4 million, very close to the increase in the net financial assets, or 13%. Three of the main changes in your reserves is that your working capital is 4.1 million, up by 849,000 from the previous year, which is really your operating surplus for the year. Your recreation and health reserve went up by 225,000, sitting at just over 1,016,000. And your roads reserve went up by $278,000, an increase of 1.3 to 1.6 million. So overall, your total reserves are quite healthy at 11.9. Some key financial ratios that we like to look at is your reserves. With your reserves, we always like to compare to what your overall operating expenditures are for the year, and that percentage, just bear with me for a second, is 67% of your overall operating expenditures, where the previous year it was 63%, so your reserves went up. We always like to see that between 25 and 50%, so your overall reserves are quite healthy. When you look at just the working capital reserve itself, that's 4.1 million, and that represents 23% of your overall operating expenditures. We like to see that between 10 and 15%, so you have quite a healthy balance of working capital reserves at the end of the fiscal year. I won't go through much of the remaining financial statements. I'm pretty sure some of you guys like to get home before morning. So, taxes receivables, one note, it is 3.8 million, which kind of went up from 400,000 from the previous year. That's the timing of collections, but also any unpaid water or wastewater accounts gets rolled over onto the property tax, property rolls at the end of the year. So that's why it's grown a little bit. And it's one kind of management recommendation letter that we have is for your administration to keep following up on their collection efforts with the overdue taxes receivable. Deferred revenue obligatory reserve funds. The capital community building fund is really your federal gas tax funds. You utilize majority of those funds this year, so you have a closing balance of $27,000. And development charges that you have collected previously was all utilized in the current year. So that's why your closing deferred revenue for obligatory reserve funds is only $108,000 compared to $560 from the previous year. The municipal debt, the only debt you have is really your obligations with tile drains, which is offset by the rate payers. Asset retirement obligations is really your future landfill closure costs, and the amount increased slightly by the accretion expense of $66,000 a year. So the liability in today's dollars to close your 2 landfill sites anyway range from 12 to 16 years from now could cost up to $5.2 million. It is an estimate based on actual reports of usage and what the expected cost would be. So it's always a evolving amount that needs to be monitored on an annual basis. And really, those are the financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2024. I do have a 5-year kind of comparative of numbers, and I've kind of indicated the key information here, which is the reserves coverage. As indicated, you had an excellent year, and you're very in good financial shape because of the amount of reserves and working capital reserve that you have on hand. So that is my report to council for your year ended December 31st, 2024, and we're prepared to issue a clean audit opinion on these financial statements. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know who to address this question to, but I imagine you'll be back sometime in May, June of this year, or do you know that? Is that something that's scheduled at this point?
Oh, yes, we've already in process. We've conducted our interim audit, which we do normally for most municipalities, and we just conducted that a couple of weeks ago. We have the year-end scheduled for June to be on your premises. And my goal, and you guys can try to hold me to it, is maybe come back in July with the presentation of your 2025 financial statements.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions or comments about the audit statements? We'll go Deputy Mayor Lang and then Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and through you. And thanks for the report. And I just wanted to thank MNP and yourself and staff. I know that we've been delayed a little bit on this through circumstances that nobody could control, and it's really nice to be up to date, and much appreciate everybody's hard work to get us there. So, thank you.
Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. Yes, thank you, Mr. Pollock, for being here, and it's good to see folks from MNP back. My question to you is, do you have any, like if you were to provide one piece of advice or recommendation or opportunity for improvement based on what you saw, what might you suggest?
Well, there would be mainly, I guess, one main area of improvement, and it's really the amount of taxes receivable at the end of the year. The amount of percentage of your total levies is at 34%, and went up by 1% from the previous year. And it is higher than some of your neighboring municipalities. So we recommend administration increase their collection efforts on overdue accounts and begin registering properties with tax arrears over 2 years old. This will assist in the overall cash flow for the township. Administration is aware of this issue and has increased its collection process on overdue accounts. So that's the main recommendation that I have for council to follow up. A second recommendation, it's something I have mentioned before, is that the township may want to consider raising its waste management reserve to cover the future landfill closure and post-closure costs. Right now, the estimated closure cost expected to be 5.2 million, whereas the waste management reserve itself is 1.1 million as of December 31st, 24. The estimated remaining life of those sites range from 12 to 16 years old. We recommend annual contributions to be made to this reserve to align with expected closure dates. This process will minimize any significant one-time increases on future taxation or obtaining excessive long-term debt to finance the estimated costs upon the closure of these landfill sites. So those dates are current. We always know there's new technology, a lot of new ways to diverge items going through the landfill sites. So the current closure periods could always keep moving downward. So right now, as of December 31st, 24, the closure timeline is from 12 to 16 years for both of the sites. So that's it, my key recommendations for council administration to take away from this year's audit.
Deputy Mayor Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for that chance to ask the question. The 5.2 million for the landfill closure, is that all closure cost, or is some of that, I seem to remember the report we had on it, some of that is monitoring costs that will occur over the next 20 years after the closure?
That is correct. So it's closure costs plus 25 years worth of post-closure costs. So
I
the
can kinda
cost to really close the site is less than the 5.2
Yeah.
million.
To me, it would be nice to have that, the actual closure cost in hand when the time comes to close, and then the monitoring costs, I think, could be almost like a budget item that we carry forward from that point, would be my thought. And I don't know what the difference was there. I can't remember now.
I don't have that information available, but we can share that with you, and it is part of our calculations. And just a thought for myself, maybe we'll expand the note a little bit to know what's closure and what's post-closure, so it provides more useful information to the users.
We're going to follow up on that question just for my understanding. So from now until closure, there will be a cost to close, right? Then the 25 years is like 25 years brought to the present value at closure point. I think I kind of follow Deputy Lang's point is from once it's closed, we need the money to close it, but the post-closure costs could be seen as potentially operating in future budgets if we took that tact legislatively.
Yeah, that's a fair approach, because it'd be just annual operating costs after that.
Okay, that'd be a great number to get back at some point in some way. Are there any further questions while we're sitting on this one? Okay, I do have a resolution to receive these, just so we can go from draft to formal. Moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Langara receive and accept the 2024 audited financial statements prepared by MNP LLP. Any questions further? No. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
And I appreciate the thanks, but really the thank you should go to your current accounting and administration staff. They got everything together for us, and the audit went quite smoothly. So thank you very much to Kaylin McDonald, her assistants, and to Jamie Fawthrop, that we appreciate the cooperation. And it's really their efforts to get your records up to date that make this all possible for us to present, really 2 years in the last 3 months. And they would be the ones to be ready for us to come in spring of 26. So we look forward to that. So thank you.
All right, well then, thank you. That is excellent. We are happy to be back on track. That's it's a very important thing, and I thank you for highlighting that. And thank you, Ms. MacDonald and team. Oh, yes, Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you very much, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I mean, we were behind a bit, but I just want to thank staff, and I think all departments, as you can see by the surplus, that even though we were kind of off track, they were running a very tight ship and keeping everything, I think internally we kind of knew where we were, and they did, but it was very good that staff was very frugal during that time. So,
Thank you very much. So then we will move to action requests, and I'll bid you adieu.
Okay, thank you very much, and everyone enjoy the rest of your evening, and happy Family Day in the next couple weeks for now. Bye.
Same to you and your kin. All right, action request 8A. Acceptance of Integrity Commissioner Report. This one's for Mr. Fawthrop, or presented by Mr. Fawthrop. Moved by Counselor Bougie, seconded by Counselor Jaworski. Be it resolved that Staff Report 2026-16 be received and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry hereby accepts the report titled Integrity Commissioner Report on Code of Conduct Complaint, Deputy Mayor Lang, or Martin Lang, prepared by the Integrity Commissioner Megan Barrett, and furthermore acknowledges the Integrity Commissioner's findings that there was no contravention of the Council Code of Conduct. I'll throw this to Mr. Fawthrop, and I believe we have Mrs. Barrett on the line if required.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have our Integrity Commissioner who investigated this complaint, Ms. Megan Barrett, from the law firm of Aird and Burles, who is attending online, would be able to provide a brief introductory kind of statements about the investigation and then be available to answer any questions that council may have. Yeah.
Please proceed. I think we've unmuted you. Yes, you had been. Our CEO did introduce you, so please go on.
At Aird and Burles, and I'm the author of the report that you have in your agenda before you this evening regarding an alleged contravention of the township's code of conduct by Deputy Mayor Lang. So the reason I'm here today is because the township's appointed integrity commissioner, Mr. Fleming, formally delegated his authority to review and investigate the complaint to Aird and Burles this past August. I will provide this evening a brief presentation of the report that you have. Then after my presentation, I would be happy to answer any questions from council about the recommendations or the procedure or related matters. I will say at the outset of this presentation that our report found that Deputy Mayor Lang was not in contravention of the code. As a result, we have not recommended a penalty. I'll also note that council under the Municipal Act only has the statutory authority to impose a penalty if we have determined that there is a contravention of the code, which is not the finding from this report and this investigation. In terms of the complaint, I will tell you that the original complaint in this matter contained a number of allegations against various members of council and the municipality. The allegations all related to the township's decision to approve a zoning bylaw amendment application for the lands at 20378 Old Montreal Road that was filed by Impala Developments. And I'll refer to these as the proposed development and the developer in my presentation, which is the same as in the report. Now, most of the allegations in the original complaint were summarily dismissed in accordance with the required procedure in the township's code. There was one allegation in the complaint that we determined had sufficient grounds to warrant an investigation, and that's the subject of the report, and that's the allegation that the deputy mayor contravened Section 10, the conflict of interest provisions. And that contravention is because his niece was engaged as a consultant by the developer at the time council considered the development application. The deputy mayor did not recuse himself nor declare a pecuniary interest at the council meeting, and he participated and voted in respect of the proposed development. He also seconded council's resolution to receive and approve the zoning bylaw amendments to permit the proposed development. Now, these are all actions that a member is not permitted to do if they have a conflict of interest under the MCIA, and by reference, also the code. As part of our investigation, we reviewed the code, we reviewed the complaint, which also included a number of subsequent submissions from the complainant and included a number of attachments and background material. We interviewed the deputy mayor and spoke with the complainant. We also reviewed the contract between the deputy mayor's niece and the developer. And finally, as is our practice, we reviewed the audio-visual recording of the council meeting and related agenda and minutes. As part of our investigation, we requested and received a formal written response from the deputy mayor, which we provided to the complainant. The complainant then had an opportunity to provide formal written reply submissions. In his response, the deputy mayor advised us that while he did know that his niece had a contract with the developer prior to the council meeting, he had reviewed the MCIA, and that's the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, to see if that relationship gave rise to a deemed pecuniary interest under the statute. And as I'll explain in more detail later, under the MCIA, it doesn't. The deputy mayor also asserted that his niece did not gain financially from council's approval of the proposed development. And on that basis, he argued there was no conflict of interest. What we found in our investigation was that under the code provisions, the niece's pecuniary interest or financial interest is deemed to be the deputy mayor's financial interest. However, after reviewing the contract between the niece and the developer and considering the nature of the familial relationship between the niece and the deputy mayor, among other factors, we determined that the pecuniary interest was sufficiently remote and insignificant to meet an exception under the MCIA. So under the MCIA, a member is deemed to have the pecuniary interest, whether direct or indirect, of a parent, spouse, or child if the member is aware of the financial interest of the family member. So in other words, if the member's parent, child, or spouse has a financial interest in a matter, the financial interest is treated under the statute as the member's own financial interest, provided that the member knows about it. The Township's Code of Conduct takes the framework from the MCIA, but adds to the list of family members that can give rise to a deemed interest. So not only parent, spouse, or child, but also sibling, grandparent, first cousin, aunt or uncle, or niece or nephew. If one of those additional family members has a financial interest in a matter, then the member is obligated to declare a conflict of interest and take all actions prescribed in the MCIA. So we determined, based on our analysis of the code, that the deputy mayor had a deemed pecuniary interest in the proposed development under Section 10 of the code. We then considered the pecuniary interest itself to understand its scope and its nature. And to do that, we reviewed the niece's contract with the developer, which contemplates a flat fee for services, for specific financial services related to a number of development projects. And that list of development projects included the proposed development. We also noted, and it noted in our report, that the contract indicates that an expanded scope of work is possible based on a monthly retainer model. Section 4 of the MCIA sets out a list of exceptions to the rules that you need to recuse yourself, you need to declare an interest, etc. So if one of the listed exceptions is applicable, then the member does not need to do the other things that they need to do if they have a conflict. One of the exceptions under Section 4 is for remote or insignificant interests. There's a lot of case law interpreting this section. The courts have told us that the question to ask when assessing whether an interest is remote or insignificant is whether a reasonable elector, being apprised of all of the circumstances, would be more likely than not to regard the interest of the councillor as likely to influence his or her decision on the question. So we determined, using this test or applying this test, that the deputy mayor's pecuniary interest in this matter was sufficiently remote and insignificant to qualify for the exception. And these were based on two key factors. So first of all, the family member is an adult niece. And secondly, that adult niece's own financial interest in the matter is indirect. So it's not her personally, but someone she has an employment contract with or a contract for services with. And furthermore, the contract itself did not, in our view, establish a sufficient link between council's approval of the proposed development and the possibility of increased work for this adult niece. And so any financial link there we determined was tentative or speculative and was not enough, in our view, to reasonably influence the member's decision from the perspective of a reasonable elector being apprised of all of the circumstances. So, given that there has been no finding of a contravention under the Act, there is no formal recommendation or no recommendation of a penalty. However, the report does make a recommendation, which I will repeat this evening as a reminder, and that's to all members of council, including the deputy mayor, a reminder to exercise caution with respect to your conflict of interest obligations under the code, as well as the MCIA. So it's important in this municipality to know that the conflict of interest requirements in your code and the statute aren't identical. So please check both. As a reminder, these obligations arise every time a matter comes before council, a committee, or staff for decisions or recommendations. And it is your personal responsibility to make sure that you are following the requirements under the MCIA and the code. And then finally, if you aren't sure about whether there's a conflict of interest, please know that you are statutorily entitled and entitled under your code to send a request, which must be in writing, to Mr. Fleming for advice about your code and or your MCIA obligations. He will provide a response to you in writing, which you can then rely on if there are any concerns about whether you had a conflict. So that concludes my presentation with respect to the report, and I would be happy to answer any questions through you, Mr. Mayor, if there are any questions from council.
All right. At present, are there any questions of council? Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. First, Ms. Barrett, I'd like to thank you for how clearly you explained your report. It can be a complicated topic, and so I really appreciate the time you took to very clearly lay it out. My question to you is somewhat outside of this report, and I'm not sure if you're able to provide a recommendation or an opinion, but would you say, would you recommend that there is, it would be warranted to harmonize the definition of family members between the MCIA and the Township's Code of Conduct, or is it a usual thing to have a discrepancy? Do you have an opinion on the matter?
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, I will say that we have different, it's a bit of a tricky question. The MCIA is intended to be a complete code. It provides strong powers in terms of statutory obligations and remedies and a process for doing that, bringing an application to court. There are specific penalties and they're quite extreme, some of the penalties. This is not the only municipality in which there's a discrepancy between the Code of Conduct and the statutory obligations under the MCIA, but it can make it more challenging as an integrity commissioner when you are trying to interpret code provisions that are not identical to the MCIA, are close but not exactly the same. That may be something that council wants to review in the next time that there is a review of your code of conduct. But I would certainly defer to your appointed integrity commissioner for his thoughts on that.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for that question, because I think sometimes with these matters, it's best to be clear, right? So if the powers are there, make them line up and be clear. So perhaps a future information report or something to see where council wants to go with that, because I think it is a fair conversation to have. Any other further questions? All right. Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. And thank you, Megan, for the report. And I learned a lot from this, I think, and definitely be a little more careful in the future. I think for me, you know, I should have likely gone to Tony right off the bat, and it would have solved a lot. And I can see where the public would feel that I had a conflict, so it would have alleviated that as well. So I'd just like to thank you for all the work you did, and I'm happy to kind of get this behind me, but I think I learned a lot, and hopefully if anybody asks me, I'll give you better advice than I would have before.
That's fair. That's a fair point. And like I have perhaps not a question, but just like I guess a broad comment, because I know we're fortunate there are other municipalities. I think like Leeds and Grenville has one that has like had 28 integrity commissioner reports, and I think this would be a first in our term that I'm aware of. And I will say very okay with being held to account. That's what we've always had that conversation. You know, we've on hard discussions, we've given opinions, and even that one you gave like a very thoughtful opinion as to why you took your action. And this process shows that we can be held to account. There are mechanisms. On this case, I will speak kind of highly of your integrity and character, and I imagine it would have been tough to go through this. So I appreciate that. One, it was done professionally. So thank you, Ms. Barrett, or Mrs. Barrett, sorry, and also to Deputy Mayor Lang for probably being open and transparent in everything you said. You've kind of conducted yourself that way throughout. So I will say that I'm glad the report found that. Whatever the report found, we would have adhered to it, because we do have that integrity on council. As for the way this was, it was, as you noted, there were a few allegations, or I think that's the right term, made that night, and I kind of found it to be a scattershot approach. I remember a finance teacher of mine one time saying, you know, like, if you guess all the answers right, I won't give you the marks because you're just taking guesses. So I'd say the performative nature of how that was handled, I didn't love that, if this is a public conversation. So hold us to account, and I think this proves that we're willing to do it. And I just wanted to again highlight Deputy Mayor Lang's character and integrity, and I'm so very thankful that this came this way, because I know the decision you took was based on what you believed is interest of the whole community, at no benefit of yours, and I'm so thankful that this report came this way. And now I'm getting personal, so I'll back it away and just say thank you for your report, your time. You did make it clear, and I don't need to read the resolution again. Okay, all those in favor of the resolution is carried, or as written, carried. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Have a good nice evening. Bye.
Moving to 8B, RFP 2025-16, electric vehicle charging infrastructure. This is Mrs. Treverton, moved by Councillor Jaworski, seconded by Councillor McDonnell. Be it resolved that staff report 2025-17, these should say 2026, right? Yeah, 2026. So anytime I've said 2025 for the reports, we'll make that friendly amendment after. Be it resolved that staff report 2026-17 be received, and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry determines that it is not public interest to award RFP 2026-16 for the public-private collaboration in electric vehicle charging infrastructure, and therefore declines to award RFP in accordance with Section 17.5 of the Township's procurement policy. Mrs. Treverton. Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, is this RFP maybe a 2025 RFP?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
So
the staff report is
2025, sorry.
2026, okay.
I went on autocorrect, and I thank you for finding that. So that's 2025-16. Mrs. Treverton.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. As a little background to this, in April of 2025, an EV charging company approached council through a delegation and was hoping to install 4 rapid charge EV chargers in Lancaster on municipal property at the Collins Street parking lot. And at that point in time, council directed administration to investigate the matter and bring back recommendations to council for their consideration. On May 12th, I brought that report back and gave basic options, of which council chose number 3, which was to draft an RFP and put it out for public bidding to determine if there were parties interested in what kind of compensation they may provide the township in consideration for using township property and entering some kind of a land use agreement. That was done in November, and we specified the same equipment that the original delegate was proposing, and invited interested parties to submit their what they would consider providing to the township for use of our property. We received 3 bids, and as outlined in my report, due to a number of reasons, we don't feel comfortable this time to recommend that council move forward with this project. There were equipment compliance issues, financial feasibility issues, and that's specific more to them relying on receiving grant funds, which we have no control over. Implementation feasibility, and offering a consideration to the township for using municipal property. So based on that, those findings of reviewing the 3 applications, we just don't feel comfortable recommending that council follow through.
Thank you very much for taking the time to do that report. Are there any questions from around the table on the recommendation? Okay. Seeing none, I suppose this is all in favor of declining the RFP? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, moving to 8C, 2025 Annual Reports for Water and Wastewater. Moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. Be it resolved that Staff Report 2026-18 be received and that the Council receives for information purposes the 2025 reports for the Glen Walter, Lancaster, Redwood Estates water treatment plants, the Glen Walter, Lancaster, and Green Valley sewage treatment plants, and the South Glengarry Consolidated Linear Infrastructure. Mr. Sagan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And as you have just mentioned, this evening I am bringing forward the 7 annual reports for water, wastewater, and our consolidated linear infrastructure for the Township of South Glengarry. This evening I am just bringing it forward for council as more of a review. I know there's lots of information for council to take a look at, so obviously, not obviously. So at this time, I'd like to bring the reports forward for council to review. If you have any questions, I am available for the next 2 weeks, and I will be back at the next council meeting to hopefully approve these reports so we can put them both on our website and publish them and also submit them to the ministry.
So I believe that 2 weeks is actually probably next Wednesday, just to meet the deadlines. If you have any questions or comments, you can put them to Mr. Sagan. Does anybody have a comment that they found or wish to talk about now? Okay. All those in favor of the motion as read? Carried. Action request 8D, 2026 roadside mowing, service delivery options. It's Mr. Kuhn. Moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Councillor Bougie. Be it resolved that Staff Report 2026-19 be received and that Council of the Township of South Glengarry, either 2 options here. So option A would be award RFQ 2026-01 to Royal Property Solutions as per their submission, and furthermore, that the General Manager of Infrastructure Services be authorized to sign all applicable documents. The second option is option B, to direct administration to proceed with obtaining additional personnel and equipment to increase roadside mowing levels of service. Mr. Kuhn.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a topic that was previously discussed on the September 22nd council meeting, and then again at the Committee of the Whole on October 7th. Council had directed administration to add a third mowing unit to increase the level of service for our roadside mowing for the summer of 2026. Administration looked at two options. We looked at contracting the third mowing unit out, and then we also looked at performing the service in-house, which is consistent with our current operations. We currently have two mowing units that are municipal staff that operate them. So the costs we found were fairly comparable. The contracting out unit with the lowest bidder was higher by just a tad. But administration feels as though keeping it consistent, having 3 units being run by the township is our preferred direction. It gives us a little bit more oversight on the personnel that are actually performing the task, and it remains in-house. So if there's any questions on this from council, I'm prepared to answer.
Councillor McDonnell.
Excuse me, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for this. I'm very excited to see if we're able to, what kind of I guess, increase in level of service we can accomplish with a third mower on the roads. My personal preference would be to go with option A and go out to outside services. In this case, just if we do not see the increased level of service as value enough for the municipality, it's an easy cut and dry for ourselves. I guess the only question I did have is, this is a 1-year contract at this point to be reviewed, or is this a 2-year as we do with our snow removal?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so this is a 1-year contract, and the intentions are historically, how we've done the roadside mowing is we've split the township on County Road 34. One unit does the east side, one does the west side. So adding a third mower, the map that was drawn out by the road supervisor, it still splits east and west on the 34, but anything north of County Road 18 will be done by that third unit. So we're hoping that significantly increases the level of service, and they're able to really keep up with the weeds and the grass as it grows.
Perfect. I'll stand by my opinion of option A. I'm excited to see what the rest of council has to say. I don't necessarily say it would be the end of the world if we ended up buying a mower and had to keep an extra spare. I just think it gives us another view of maybe other opportunities where there might be an improvement here, or how far we want to go, maybe with even going further with some of this, and maybe in the future we don't want to be the ones renting tractors. Over the last number of years, we know we've had a number of instances where we've had issues. We've had damages done to rented equipment, and when you damage somebody else's equipment, it's got to go back exactly the way it came, if not better. So those do incur extra costs. I'd like to see what a contractor could probably maybe have to offer for the municipality at relatively a very similar cost, and I think we would see even the interest I had just as a councillor receiving calls from local contractors, local farm operators looking at this. I think if it went out another year, you'd see an increased bidders group coming to that servicing contract. So just my personal opinion, I think there's a lot of opportunities going outside.
Thank you. I guess as that's option B, A, you were kind of mentioning. Does anybody have a further opinion on option A or B at this point? Because as the resolution has read, it's open to our interpretation, or not interpretation, our choice. Councillor Bougie.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the reports. I was surprised how close the numbers were, actually, but I guess in reviewing this, I do like the idea of having our own individual staff with option B doing the work with that extra mower. If anything happens, we have that extra unit, as well as having the additional tractor that maybe could be done for other tasks if needed. So I am leaning towards option B currently.
Deputy Mayor Lang, and then Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thanks for the report. Just a question, as you well know, the nature of mowing the roadsides is that the tractors are in the ditch, out of the ditch, angles and this sort of thing. If we rent a tractor and we do damage it, are we paying full cost to have that replaced? And I suppose it depends on how badly it's damaged, but I imagine our deductible is fairly high at the township level. I know finance likely could answer that, but I'm just wondering what happens if it does take some of the risk away of us renting a tractor. If somebody else is looking after it, they dip it over, well, it's their problem. But I know it does happen occasionally with the counties and maybe us as well.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So, I mean, it has happened in the past. I'm sure council's aware of previous incident. I'm not sure if it would be a total insurance claim on that, or if the township would pay to fix the unit back to its original condition when the township rented it. I got a nod from our treasurer, so I'm assuming that we would pay for the damages ourselves, and then to restore it back to its original condition.
Just before you go, I think the number was 50,000 is our deductible right now, so we could, if it's, most of it would fall within our own coffers.
Thank you. Well, that kind of helps me a little bit because, I mean, the contracts were closed within, basically within a couple $1,000s of whether we could do it ourselves with renting or hire somebody. But if it takes that risk away, like if a tractor does tip, I mean, it's going to be pretty hard to come out with less than $5,000 to $10,000 worth of damage, just, in superficial, like the cab or the hood, the side window, whatever ends up breaking. So I might go along with Councillor McDonnell and see if we try it for a year and see how it goes. If we're happy, and we can always, if it's a 1-year contract, we can always decide to do it in-house afterwards if we think this is a great idea. I am looking forward to seeing the roads mowed quicker, and hope maybe we could even keep up with our bylaw that says that grass has to be kept under 16 inches or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's true. You write the playbook, you got to follow it. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Kuhn, for the report, and thanks to Infrastructure in general for bringing back something fairly quickly that council had requested, an additional something to look into, and so I appreciate that extra work. Because option A and option B are so close in monetary value, I'm inclined to go with the preference of staff on that, since in the end they're the ones managing it. I do recognize what Deputy Mayor Lang and Councillor McDonnell have said in terms of damage. That is a consideration, but again, I think it depends on how often these things happen, and staff would have a better understanding of how frequent it is. The other item I wanted to highlight that I think is a plus for having our staff do it is we do, a lot of our ditches have, I guess if we are very good at mowing them, we don't have unexpected hazards in the ditches, but we do have some ditches that have bell boxes and other things that have been hit in the past, and I would think if we have our staff keyed into our GIS and just their experience of knowing those areas and going back to the same areas over and over again, that those hitting unexpected hazards would be lessened by our own staff.
I saw Councillor McDonnell with a hand up.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, can staff tell us, I think it's 2 years in a row now we've rolled the tractor and done significant damage to a cab. And that's, I don't expect you to maybe have that on hand, just seeing as you are new, Mr. Kuhn, but I think it's the last 2 years we've had to repair our rental tractors. 1 year. I was under the impression we rolled one again this year, but I think last year was a significant damage, was it not? But anyways, just it's not that these are a 1 in 5 year incident. They have happened quite frequently, just from speaking with the contractor who currently rents us a tractor.
I did have one question, because I guess I'm the tie vote on this one, nice and fun. The seasonal employee per hour, is that somebody hired just for this, or would that be a carry forward of a winter staff through, just to make sure and I'm sorry if I missed that in reading.
So through you, that would be one of our seasonal staff that is typically laid off during the summer that we would ask to come back for this task.
All right, well, that makes my decision less easy. But I would say I'd like to see, because at $2,000, similar to, and I think there's an administrative burden here that sometimes paying somebody to do something to try it out. Additionally, and you know how sometimes other people convince me, and Councillor Jaworski kind of convinced me many years ago that sometimes it's easier to cut royal property off than to remove this person's summer break. So I'd like to see what we can do in 1 year, and then maybe come back with this report if it's something that has worked well, to come with doing it in-house and get that seasonal. But for the first year, I'd like to, the easy Band-Aid to rip off if it doesn't get what council wishes, or really it's the farm community trying to keep up with the noxious weeds essentially, and also the aesthetics. So I guess we'll go going option A for this one. So I'll read that again with option A, which is to go with royal property solution. And so moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Councillor Bougie. Be resolved that staff report 2026-19 be received, that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry choose option A, award RFQ 2026-01 to Royal Property Solutions as per their submission, and furthermore, that the General Manager of Infrastructure Services be authorized to sign all applicable documents. All those in favor? Carried. Now for the trackless refurbishment, this is 2016 MT6 trackless refurbishment and attachment replacement. Mr. Kuhn will be presenting it, moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Bougie. Be resolved that staff report 2026-20 be received, and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry authorize administration to proceed with the direct sourcing of the refurbishment of Unit 35 2016 MT6 trackless machine, including the purchase of 1 rear salt spreader, 1 twin auger snow blower, and 1 5-way folding plow from Joe Johnson Equipment, and further, that the General Manager of Infrastructure Services be authorized to execute all applicable documents. Mr. Kuhn.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So this is one that council would be familiar with as well. This was discussed at the September 22nd regular council meeting, again at the Committee of the Whole on October 7th, and then through the budgetary process. So we did get a quote back from John Johnson Equipment, and the total with the 3 attachments came in at under what we had budgeted at $185,200. So administration is recommending that we proceed with the quote as submitted.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments or questions on this particular one? Deputy Mayor Lang?
I'm all in favor. I think we discussed it. I thought it was a done deal. I didn't know I was coming back, so I don't, maybe did we just not pass the resolution? It was just a suggestion, or I thought we had already agreed on it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, due to the cost of it being so high, we just wanted to let council know what we were spending on it.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. I guess if that sums up what we've said before, all those in favor? Carried. I'm happy for that one, because that's twice we've gone against staff recommendation with the snow plowing, and then this one, so good to be back. So I called all in favor, and that worked. I did call the vote. 9A. So this is our bylaws, amended temporary land use agreement, Enbridge Gas. Mrs. Haley. Moved by Councillor Jaworski, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lang. Be it resolved that staff report 2026-21 be received, and that bylaw 2026-11, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2025-09 to enter into a temporary land use agreement between the Township of South Glengarry and Enbridge Gas Incorporated, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 9th day of February 2026. Mrs. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a bit of a housekeeping staff report, but I'll walk you through it. The Glendale Subdivision Community Expansion Project is proposed to supply the community of Glendale with natural gas. In February of 2025, Council received a staff report and passed a resolution to approve the establishment of an easement in favor of Enbridge Gas and to enter into a temporary land use agreement for the installation and maintenance of natural gas main to be located on a portion of a property that we owned. And it was described as parts 1 through 4 on reference plan 14R 4344. Since then, the easement has been established and registered as per council's approval. Now that the easement's been established and Enbridge was looking at their agreements, they noted that they wanted to alter the temporary land use agreement to remove the requirements of parts 1 through 4, since the easement is there, and add in parts 5 to 8. In discussing this with our clerk, we felt it was important to ensure that the accurate description of the legal description was included in case there were to be any incidences or issues, so that way then it actually reflects the correct area. In the staff report, you may have noticed that Enbridge provided a brief update on the project. I'm not going to go through that in detail, but if council was looking for an update, it is specific to the work that's going to happen in the location of where the easement is. But it's great news, and it looks like that portion of the work will be completed by June of 2026, and the agreement will be in effect until the end of 2026, just in case they get behind schedule. But it's great that this project is advancing in this part of our municipality. So of course, the staff report is recommending to receive the report and have council or the mayor and clerk enter into the agreement. Thanks.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? All those in favor? Oh, sorry. Councillor McDonnell, I didn't see it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I won't belabor it. I was just going to say it was nice to see Enbridge at when we attended the Roma conference. We had a fulsome discussion, or a number of fulsome discussions on this project, and it's excellent to see it finally shovels in the ground when we've been told shovels in the ground for a number of years. It's good to see things are starting to actually roll there, and we can finally get the Glendale subdivision roads done. They've been sitting on our list for at least 5 years now, waiting to go, so that's all good news. Thank you.
And committee-wise, now that the EORN is coming through in this, maybe the connectivity committee is one that we no longer require, because we've kind of checked the boxes we wanted to there. I'll just say, call the vote again. All those in favor? Carried. So moving to zoning bylaw amendment 21899, Old Highway 2, moved by Councillor Jaworski, seconded by Councillor McDonnell. Be it resolved that staff report 2026-22 be received and the bylaw 2026-12, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 3809 to rezone the lot legally described as part of Lot 8, Concession 1 Front, being Part 1 of RP 14R2996 in the geographic township of Lancaster, now in the township of South Glengarry, County of Glengarry, located at 21899 Old Highway 2, pin 671370364, from Highway Commercial CH to Light Industrial ML, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 9th day of February 2026. The Council of the Township of South Glengarry confirms that comments received from the public were thoroughly reviewed and considered, but the effect did not influence council to deny, I'll read that again just because I think I said that backwards. But the effect did not influence council to deny the zoning amendment application. Mrs. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to take a few minutes to walk you through this staff report. So as you mentioned, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is located at 21899 Old Highway 2, and it's just east of the interchange at what we call Curry Hill. So this property is located on the north side of Old Highway 2. It backs onto Highway 401, and it's approximately 550 meters east of the intersection of Old Highway 2 and Fourth Line Road. It is approximately 3 hectares in size. It's partially developed, containing 2 buildings. These buildings are serviced by a well and 2 septic systems on site. And the last known uses for these buildings are the building on the west side, on the subject property when you're facing north. The building on the west side was last used as a tractor-trailer repair garage, to our knowledge, and the building on the east side was last used for storage, office space, with a residential unit on the second floor. Behind the west building, there is a pile of debris that we believe are asphalt shingles, and as you know, that has created a lot of discussion in our community over the recent years. You'll see in the staff report that we provided various photos that show the usage of the building in the last several years. We relied on Google Street View for these photos to show the history of it. The purpose of this amendment is to rezone the subject property from highway commercial to light industrial. There are no new buildings or structures being proposed at this time. However, that could change in the future if the zoning amendment is approved. The property measures approximately 3 hectares, as I indicated, and so it would be able to accommodate the usage of the existing structures and the proposed uses for those existing structures, as well as possibly new development. Parts 5 and 6 of the staff report provide detailed information as to how this requested zoning bylaw amendment is consistent with the provincial policy statement 2024 and the official plan. I'm not going to review all of those sections with you. As you see, the report's quite lengthy, but when we're doing our staff report and preparing reports with recommendations to council, everything that I'm required to look at is to compare to policies that are currently in effect. For example, as administration or as planning staff, we cannot make recommendations to council to approve something that would be inconsistent with the provincial planning statement, as well as not conforming to the official plan. So that's why it's important for that thorough review to be completed and to demonstrate when a zoning bylaw amendment is applied for, that it does conform to those documents. And we have to look at the entirety of those documents as well. Moving along, you'll see in the staff report that we have a section on the public consultation. So as you know, we held a public meeting on January 12th of 2026. The application was circulated to the abutting property owners within 120 meters, and we also placed an ad in the local newspaper, and a sign was erected on site. All of this is done because the Ontario Planning Act requires us to do so. We have received 17 public comments regarding the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Council has been provided a copy of all of those public comments. And I'm sure you'll see in those comments when you review them that there are some consistent themes. We also had several people attend the public meeting, as you may recall, back in January. And many of those people spoke in opposition to the proposed amendment. It's important for us to listen to those members of the public and to sincerely consider their concerns and their comments. I realize that they live in this community and that there could be an impact on the community. But we look at both sides of the comments that are received. And again, my report really looks at policy. The themes that came out of the comments, and they're summarized in the table, as well as additional information were provided to you to explain how those comments either conform to policy or don't. But you'll see the common themes are the debris pile that we mentioned, increased traffic, possible pollution, road conditions of existing Old Highway 2, land use compatibility, property values, and safety. As part of the public process, we were obligated to notify different agencies. And two of the agencies that we rely on their comments for in this particular area would be, one, the United Counties of SD&G Transportation Department. And the reason for this is because this property fronts on a county road. The county transportation staff have reviewed the application. They provided us written comments and indicated that that the proposed amendment has no impact, or they had no concerns or impact to, I'm jumping ahead here, I'm going to read that comment. SD&G County's Transportation Services has no concerns with the proposed zoning amendment as it relates to SD&G County's road network. I believe most of you know that this is an emergency detour route, and this road is not subject to half loads. We also circulated the zoning amendment to the Ministry of Transportation. And the ministry provided some detailed comments, but just to summarize their comments, the ministry can support the proposed rezoning, and the ministry requests that once the municipality makes a final decision, that they are provided a copy of the decision. You'll see in the staff report that there are other comments that the ministry speaks to in regards to possible changes made to the zoning amendment, future developments, may be subject to permitting, such as sign permits, et cetera, and that their comments are valid for a period of 1 year if a decision hadn't been made within that year. Another point that I'd like to point out that I often get comments or questions from the public is, We are obligated to follow timelines under the Ontario Planning Act. Once we receive a complete application and we deem that application complete, we have 90 days for our council to make a decision. Our goal is to always be within that time frame and not exceed the 90 days. There are times where we do exceed the 90 days, and when that happens, it's generally because either additional information is required or the applicant has requested additional time to look at their proposal. In this particular case, if council makes a decision this evening, we're making a decision on day 67. I know sometimes the public feels like we're rushing these decisions because it looks like we're doing it in advance of 90 days. And that's not the case. It's because we have put the time in needed to prepare the staff report and bring it to council. And as I said, our goal is to not go beyond the 90 days. You'll see in the staff report that I am recommending that this application be approved, as it is consistent with the Provincial Planning Statement 2024, and it does conform to the United Counties official plan. Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the proposed zoning amendment in my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions presently around the table? Okay, Deputy Mayor Lang and then Councillor, or we'll go Councillor Jaworski and then Deputy Mayor Lang, because I think I've gone to Deputy Mayor Lang 3 times now first.
I have a question, and then I'd like to give my opinion on the proposal. My question is, and it relates to some of the comments that are in the comments received from the public, related to suggestions that the way this process is going reduces like the environmental like the requirements in terms of environmental reports or environmental studies. And that was not my understanding, and I just would like to have your professional opinion on that, Ms. Haley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for that question. I think that's an important question to ask and an item to discuss. When I look at this parcel of property, there are no environmental constraints, and I'm going to explain to you what I'm looking at so you understand what those environmental constraints are. So we would be looking to see if there's a water course on that property. That water course could either be a municipal drain, it could be a body of water, it could be a ditch that's intermittent or a full filled with water year-round. It may or may not have fish habitat. That's one component of the environment that we look at. Another component that we look at is, are there any natural heritage features? So natural heritage features is a planning term that we generally wouldn't use in our day-to-day language, but that includes any wetlands, woodlands, ANSIs, which is an area of scientific interest. And this information is provided to all planning staff from the province of Ontario, as well as from our local conservation authorities. So in our digital world today, we're typically working on mapping with different layers that would show us what features we have to look at that we would consider to be constraints when we're receiving and reviewing an application. There are no environmental features on this property. So therefore, we would not be asking for environmental impact studies if none of those features exist. So to be very clear, there is no ditch, no body of water, no wetland, no significant woodlands, no area of scientific interest that would require us to do a full environmental review. And I know that we received several comments about concerns with the debris that is located on the property. Our administration had looked into it years ago, and it is a file that's with the Ministry of Environment. My understanding is that it is ongoing, and that is not deemed to be a significant environmental risk. We don't have authority over our ministry, so it's not our place to, step in and challenge the ministries. We have to trust on what they're doing and working on that file. So that's the reason why we have not had the need for any environmental studies. There's one thing, though, that I did reference in the staff report, and it did come up in the public meeting. The applicant and the agent did provide a copy of what's called a Phase 1 environmental site assessment. That's something that they would have done on their own. That was not something that we requested. If you look at that date of the document, it predates the date of this zoning amendment application. The recommendation from that study did not recommend a Phase 2 environmental site assessment. So I'm not an expert in writing environmental site assessments, but that tells me that they must not have seen a significant risk to not advance to the next stages of those processes. So I hope I've answered your question. Thank you.
Do you have a comment to follow? Or? No, please do. Yeah.
Thank you. Through Mayor McDonald. Yeah, so in terms of comments on the file, first of all, thank you, Ms. Haley, for running us through this process. I want to start by recognizing the comments and the concerns from the public, and thank you to staff for, collating those, putting them together, and also I had the opportunity to speak with some of the direct neighbors to the piece of property that's being subject to this proposal. So I want to thank them also for their time and, the opportunity to get richer context of their concerns. I definitely understand. I'm quite confident, Ms. Haley, that you've analyzed this file appropriately, and that your recommendation is couched in, to your point, lining up with policies. I also, though, want to recognize that for those direct neighbors, that does not necessarily make them feel any better about the situation, and I can understand why they have a lot of reservations about this project going forward, or this zoning amendment going forward. However, as I explained to those neighbors, when these things, when we get the recommendations from staff, and certainly conforms, if we were to, council can always vote against these things. However, it's a very difficult situation if it's not in line with the recommendations of staff. And as I said to them, if it were to be appealed, if council were to vote against it and it were to be appealed, I have a very hard time imagining that we would win in that situation. I would think that, in that case, it would revert back to staff's recommendation, because I do think that when the province is looking at areas like this, as ours, along the 401 corridor, that's the expectation, is that, because of the requirements for the trucking industry, that's the logical places for those types of industries. And while I understand the folks who live there now, it's been relatively quiet recently, the last couple decades, that there was a time where that area was very, very busy for a similar type of development. So I'm comfortable with what staff is recommending. However, I really hope that as we move forward through the process in terms of site plan, et cetera, that there is ways to address the concerns, which I think are very valid in terms of traffic. We have certain areas where we know that trucks back up in other parts of our township because of perhaps not the best accesses. So to make sure, I'm hoping that can be it should be well addressed during site plan, as well as how to limit the impacts on, there's quite a bit of residential development in that area, and some of which is very, very close, and how site plan can support having buffers or boundaries between the more sensitive land uses and what could eventually be built here, understanding that there's no immediate plans for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I won't go through everything that Councillor Dworsky has said. Thank the public for their comments and acknowledge them. And for me, what makes the difference is we're not changing this to light industrial from residential or farmland or anything. It's already zoned highway commercial. So, and I look at the issues with traffic and some of the issues that the public had. Those already could be an issue with it being highway commercial. So I don't think that the change is enough that it would cause me to hesitate to do it. So I'm going to be in favor.
Any further comments? I'll just talk on this one just for a moment, because there were a few that showed up. So like the debris was a concern, but it's not something that we can do anything really about, it seems. So like that is, I wish we could, but we can't. I appreciate that that's something that if it was across from my yard, I think Shingle Mountain, I wouldn't want it. And then like the unknown, I can imagine a little bit, like moving it in a different zoning. But I think it offers us more opportunity for growth. And I think if you go back a few years when we talked to a whole bunch of people in a short amount of time, growth was something that people wanted in our community, and this kind of fits that. So I was, again, acknowledging the discomfort of the community. I was also leaning in favor of this, and nothing I haven't been moved further, so I'm also supporting it. No further comments? All those in favor? Carried. So we do have a key information reports, the 2025 annual report on building permit fees and costs. This one's Mr. Raby.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Each year, the municipality is required by the province to prepare a report regarding total fees, direct costs, indirect costs, and the statement of our reserve fund balance in order to operate the building department for the enforcement of the Building Code Act. So looking at our 2025 numbers, the building department revenues total just under $374,000. Our direct and indirect costs totaled slightly over $523,000, which translates to a deficit of $149,000 to operate the department, or depending on how you look at it, 71.5% cost recovery. The reserve fund closing balance finished the year at negative $5,406 after the purchase of a new SUV at the early stages of 2025. Looking at 26, we have budgeted $10,000 this year, which will bring that account back out of the red, if you will. So in summary, the department finances are in accordance with the Act for this past year.
Thank you very much. I think this kind of builds on also the conversations with REC and essentially the subsidization, or not subsidization, but the tax payment of that. And at 149, that is less than 1.5% of our levy. I think our levy is probably 110, is close to 1% now. But that I think is a valuable number to have, because, and if I guess I'm talking a little out of turn, but some of the conversations I have with communities, some people will say the permit is too high for the value they get, and then my counter argument is well, I'm paying for you to have a building on your property, so at least you get that with that too high permit. So I think that number is very valuable for community conversations, and I'm not trying to be negative about it. It's just now we have information, so we can have a better discourse with the community. Are there any questions of council on this information report? Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. Thank you very much, Mr. Raby, for being here. We don't hear, it's a good thing that we don't hear too much about the building department, but it is great to have you here and go through the details of the revenues and expenses in your department. One question I had is specific to the line on revenues about the forfeited permit deposit. Am I right that is we made a change a couple years ago where if folks don't close their permits by a certain amount of time, they forfeit the deposit, but that was something new, whereas in the past, it was sort of they could pretty much go on forever to get their deposit back. So is this a result of that change, or am I misremembering or getting it wrong? Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, your memory's correct. The recent new bylaw that we implemented 3 years ago, after 2 years of an open permit, we start to claw back some of that deposit, 25% each year. And so this would be some revenue that's showing up from 2 years ago. And the idea behind it was to help encourage the closing of permits, but also to provide a little bit of revenue to try to keep our building permit costs down. So I do expect, we only have 2 years of data in there, if you will, and I expect that number to be roughly double that once we get 4 years in the cycle.
If I recall correctly, some of that building permits went back decades, so it's nice to tidy that up too for a reconciliation matter. Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I'll add to Councillor Jaworski's comment that we don't hear too much about the building department. I think that's a great thing. It means it's working smoothly. We used to hear a lot many years ago. We would get calls all the time, and I haven't got one for quite a while. So that's congratulations to you guys. You're doing a good job keeping the public happy and keeping things moving forward. Question about the forfeited deposit. Are they notified that it's happening, or is it just happening? And they maybe think they still have a deposit? I'm thinking some of these are people that just don't want to do the final inspection. They just kind of, but I'm not sure, you know, whether we should be notifying them or not, or maybe we are. I'm not sure.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So at the beginning, when you apply for a permit, we do have you sign we call it a consent acknowledgement form, where you're indicating where you want your deposit refunded to. And our notification to them at that time is mainly verbal. Most people are aware throughout the build of the 2-year timeline. However, that notification is strictly verbal right now. I think for us to put something in place, obviously we could look at it in terms of like a written notification. Might be a little bit taxing staff-wise, but we could always look at it.
What would the amount be of some of the larger deposits? Just for me, that is not sure of these things.
So our largest, or most of our residential deposits on let's say a new house, is anywhere between $3,000 and $4,000. So you'd be looking at either, you know, $750 or $1,000 would be that 25% that you would lose. So that's what they'd be losing after 2 years.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, and as far as what Councillor McDonald was talking about, like at 1 point, whatever that's going to be, 1.25%, maybe is not. We can't collect more than what we need for the department, so we have to be under a certain amount. Maybe that's not a bad amount to kind of put in towards the building department to, you know, encourage growth and so forth. I don't know. I'm okay with it.
I don't recall when we had a discussion, probably 2014-18 council with this, so it's just always something to come up, and I think this reminds us that we want to have the conversation because we could put a motion forward, and if not, then we're happy to proceed. And I also must echo, I don't hear anything really about building too, so it's been a great 3 years. All right, so that's an info report, so no other questions. Thank you for your time. Moving to consent agenda, the item pulled was 2026 council per diem and mileage rate. I believe it was by Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Yeah, thanks staff for bringing this forward. It's nice to see every year so we know what the numbers are. My question to the rest of council was, is there any interest in dropping? We have 3 rates there: activities under 2 hours, a half day, or a full day, and you know, the per diem for each one. I would be interested in dropping the under 2 hours. There's very few times I think that we would go to an event or something that it would be what I would consider less than half a day, and it's simply because you know, at my regular job I'd have to stop, go to the house, change clothes, have a shower, go to the event. You know, even if the event's only an hour long, by the time, you know, you'd have a little chat with everybody, you don't want to be rude and just sneak out. You know, you take it back home, get dressed, you've lost 3 or 4 hours, which to me is a half day, you know. So I just, the county council doesn't even have half day. They have only per diem. It's just a set amount. They don't have a half day, but I kind of like the idea. I did vote for the half day of the county council, but I was beaten. But I would be interested in getting rid of the 2 hours. I don't think I've used it yet. I'm trying to remember, but anyway.
Was going to my
see what
question.
everybody else thinks about.
My question too is it might be something I imagine, we had this conversation a little before, like I probably, my activities at the counties are higher. I think I submit 2 or 3 times a year, generally conferences locally, so the 2 hours is not something I've ever used to answer your question. Maybe it's just something none of us have used, so why have it? Because when we go to like a business opening, you're probably really not charging that. We just show up and go. And I mean, I'm glad too, but Councillor McDonnell, do you have a comment?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I would agree to that as well. I think maybe the nature of this was initially intended for maybe events like you said, business openings or say our community volunteer appreciation evenings and things like that, where I think all the council would agree we go out of our, one, respect for the event or respect for the business owner. And I don't think, I would venture to say that none of us have ever charged for going to one of those events. It's probably maybe better that for future councils, I would say, the integrity of the people around this table are not my, are of no concern to me. I believe everybody at this table has high integrity standards. I would say maybe just even removing it would even remove the thought of somebody using it in the future for something like that, where we see it as maybe a part of the job already that we've signed on for. So I have no issue with removing the activities under 2 hours, and I think as you said, the half days are used when we've done a day and a half of meetings and we're getting out at 1 o'clock or 1:30 and going back to whatever regularly scheduled programming our lives take on for us. So I have no issue that way.
I think I saw a fairly consistent show of head shakes, but I saw we can remove that 2 hour one for the future. And something not related but tangentially related to this would be, I know the counties had discussed compensation. Like, I don't know how people feel about that. I just had a question of the treasurer, because I think there's included in our stipend is an amount for mileage as well as there's an amount for communications. That amount is not subject to CPI, right? That's just like a set, like the compensation, it's like plus 1,000 for mileage and plus 1,000 for communications. Am I right about that? Because I'm just thinking that might be something, the mileage update, because I think that probably had been that way since 2014, and gas is a little bit more expensive. It's not a necessary thing, but it's something that would be like a fair thing to converse if council is interested in having that conversation. We don't need to do it now, but am I accurate with what I've said? With the numbers, at least $1,000, just to be sure. Maybe it's $999.96, maybe. Okay, unfair to ask, but that's something if council wishes to have a discussion. Those are two small parts of our compensation that are not inflation adjusted. Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would be, it's good to check these things once in a while, and I think that's kind of where it started at County Council, is staff just brought a report, just said they checked all the upper tiers in Eastern Ontario, and they just brought us a report saying this is where we stand compared to all the upper tiers, and it turned out we were the lowest. And so council decided, well, let's take a look at it and maybe put ourselves somewhere in the average, somewhere in the middle. So it wouldn't hurt to have a report just to kind of see what are the other 6 municipalities in our area. Maybe we're the highest, maybe we're lowest, I don't know. But we could look at it, and at least if we have that information, I don't think, like you say, it's been done for many years, so it doesn't hurt to take a look.
And just not with perfect memory, but I think I did some of that work in South Dundas. That'd be 2022 report. And I believe at that time, our mayor was fairly compensated, and councils was, and we were somewhat compressed, and I love that because like there are some councils that, the councilors make 17 and the mayor makes a considerable bit more, and for that sake, like we all attend the same meetings. I like the compression of that. Like the mayor does take on a few more things, but many of them are kind of bonus because you get to say, like, happy birthday to a 100-year-old, which is exciting to me. So it's I do that for free. Okay. So moving on, and thank you for a little tangent on that. So maybe something to come back to. No rush on that, and it certainly wouldn't be for this term of council, I don't feel. Consent agenda, we've done that. So moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Bougie. Be resolved that council accepts the items listed on the consent agenda. All those in favor? Carried. So board and committee updates. Are there any? I know the counties had 2 meetings. One was a committee of a whole today. The other one was a delayed council meeting, and the RRCA also had a delayed one, both for inclement weather. So it's nice that when we ask people to stay off the road that we have followed up on that. If I can go to Councillor McDonnell, because he was at the committee of committee of whole, if you don't mind, because you were the one who kind of brought that forward with the motion here, and you have offer an unbiased opinion, perhaps. What were your thoughts?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate you turning it maybe to myself. I think it was a very well-received meeting from the ag community, and I guess overall. The committee of the whole was called just to discuss windbreaks and some of the specifically the tree planting operations of the United Counties of SD&G. We did in the fall have an instance where the counties came in and decided to plant, had planned to plant a number of trees in excess of 2,000 trees in our municipality on one of their county road allowances. And the ag community, and I think council as well here, took issue maybe with the lack of consultation and maybe the lack of, I don't want to say lack of respect, but maybe lack of knowledge as to what kind of pushback they would be receiving from something of significant like that, operations like that. So fortunately, the county's called the committee of the whole to discuss it and for the future of 2026 and 2027's planting operations. And a presentation was given by the Glengarry Federation of Agriculture's president on behalf of all three federations for the United Counties. Mr. Ferguson from Lancaster. He gave an excellent presentation, refuted refuted and maybe responded to a lot of the staff's kind of comments and their justification, and I think brought it to a very respectable end in the sense that I think there's a true desire around the county council's table for a ag resource committee or an advisory committee at the county level to maybe engage with the ag community on some of these projects, be it tree planting or any other infrastructure project that might directly impact the ag community and regular farm practices outlined by the province. And it was really well received, and a lot of positive comments made both from staff, council, and Mr. Ferguson. And I know it was very, very well appreciated by the ag community and the conversations we had after the meeting. And it appears as though the council is going to go ahead with a pause on all tree planting operations for 2026 until proper consultation and maybe the establishment of a ag resource committee can be started, and we can move forward with continuing to see the county plant trees but just in collaboration with the ag community and in places where it does make sense. And you know, I think it was outlined by Mr. Ferguson well that everybody thinks that farmers are tree haters. We're not tree haters. We just feel there's a place for them, and it's not generally in farm fields. It's in land where they should be, and we do value tree cover and tree canopy, but it's just in a thoughtful way as opposed to a reckless way. So we appreciated the FaceTime and council's sentiment.
One comment that happened after was I kind of said, was this a kind of an outpouring of audience members? And Mr. Harper, who's the director there, said he spoke to Trevor Baker, who's been there 14 years, and it was the most amount of people they've seen in the audience. And I said, well, welcome to the lower tier. So I guess that's the holding everybody accountable, and I like that. Yeah, it's nice to show up, and especially for that matter. Did you want to add anything, or would you like to talk about the other meeting, the one that occurred last Monday?
I'm going to let you go with it. If I can think of anything to add, I will, but you said you already have some notes, so.
Yes, so there was a bunch of housekeeping items. One delegation was the Winchester District Memorial Hospital. I kind of foresee a future where an MRI machine is a lot of money and not provincially funded, so look forward to those conversations in the future. They had their bridge review similar to us, same people. EVB has taken the contract for Alexandria Downtown. That's going to be a massive contract. As you know, the Garry River flows under the village, underneath the mill pond. Or is it Garry River? Yes, yeah. Reduced setback, if you want to talk, because you advocated for that one, Deputy Mayor, for County Road 26, I believe.
Yeah, there was an application for a reduced setback at, which would be on County Road 26, just north of the number 2. There's if you know right, you go north of Howard Cameron's, there's a jog in the road right at Ogerley's, where it comes to a T and there is no stop sign there. But the house on the northwest corner of that T wanted to renovate, and they have a veranda on the front at the moment. It's maybe half the width of the house. They'd like to make it the full width of the house, and we were able to pass it. the staff, you know, it kind of goes against the rules that we have. It's a little closer to the road than what it's supposed to be, but it's existing now, and making it wider we didn't think would be. So I was very happy to see that that passed, and I think staff understood. I mean, their recommendation had to be to follow the rules, and it's nice that county council can look at it and use some common sense and say that the young couple living there can have their full veranda and renovate the house to the way that they wanted it to. So it's good. It was quite an interesting conversation. Most people were good with it.
Additional items, there was something about Long Sioux Roundabout. There was a depressed catch basin. We received it, didn't do any change. Server, IT, they bought a cluster. Bridge was being done. RRCA IT contract was finalized. It's such a shame, given that the RRCA may not exist in a little bit. And then tax rates and ratios were done. RRCA also had a meeting. That was last Thursday. Again, delayed because of inclement weather on January 15th. They did the levy, so they finalized the levy. An interesting thing for the levy is Cornwall gets 50% of the vote, and North Stormont gets 1.some%, so you only need those three to pass the budget. It's kind of funny. At 1% that Councillor Bugelli, sorry, gets the opportunity to be the rainmaker, so to speak. There were housekeeping items, staff recognition. That was kind of funny. If I can share just a fun thing, is there was an individual who has been there for 20 years, or was it 15, 20? Oh, well, yeah, Lisa Delon was there for 25. She's local. She lives on Warden Road. And then Phil Barnes, who you know from planning, he told a funny one where he said good. His mother said, no, you do well, Superman does good. So just a fun way how to remind people how to say well in the right time, but not really topical to this conversation. Any other boards that have met, or any information on those boards? Deputy Mayor Lang?
Just to add to Raisin Region, and you might have seen it in social media, Jacques Massey is the chair for the Raisin Region this year, and Andrew Gaindo is the vice chair. So two new people. Jacques was vice chair last year, so stepping up into the chair position, and Andrew stepping up as vice chair. So, and I wasn't at Roma, sorry I missed it, but I did hear that Andrew kind of chaired the delegation for the conservation authorities, and I heard he did an excellent job. I don't know if you were in that delegation or not, but
Yes, I was there, and I thought Todd McCarthy called himself John. So I said, hello, John Laughlin. He's like, your name's John? I'm like, oh, no. So I apologize to the minister for that mistake, because I had Todd in my head, but I thought he said John, so I got worried, and my audible was wrong. But Andrew did do a great job. The focus was more on not shutting down the whole idea, but that Cataraqui region representing Kingston doesn't really fit with the rest of, like, you know, Renfrew County and around. So if you're going to draw them up, perhaps this is better. We'd ideally just be RRC or RRC and South Nation, but, you know, just trying to say, like, if you're doing this, do give some consideration. Cataraqui doesn't really belong with us, because Kingston would absorb, you know, like, there's 200,000 people there. They get a lot of pull, right? Keep that rural response rural. So, and Andrew, I said that, yeah, and you said did a great job there. Before going to closed session, a few items. Oh, yes, go ahead, Councillor Jaworski, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Quick, on the Environment Committee, we had a meeting on January 27th. We had two items, a presentation from staff, where staff reviewed a list of locations, potential locations for a monarch habitat. Committee had a discussion of the pros and cons of each, and also offered some additional locations to consider. So it'll be a topic of continued conversation at a future meeting. Staff also shared, the committee was happy to hear staff sharing some positive updates on some shoreline restoration, potential shoreline restoration work at the park along the water in Glen Walter. So, and again, both of these, the monarch habitat and the watershed, the shoreline restoration would both be, if they do go ahead, would be funded by grant funding, so not a cost to the taxpayer. Then there's the typical discussion of the regular discussion of our focused areas, which are landfill management, organics, and shoreline restoration. And basically the summary is that the committee is looking forward to the waste management master plan being completed this year, because that will really help focus activities and, efforts in terms of diversion. So looking forward to that. And future meeting dates for 2026 were determined, and one I wanted to highlight was in May 26, having a visit to the landfill. So I wanted to make sure that council heard about this and that eventually when the invitations get sent out, the council's included, because lots of improvements have been made at the landfill, and I think it would be great for council to participate and see those changes. So that's it.
Thank you very much. So with this, before we conclude, we have a kilt skate coming up 2 Sundays from now. I believe it's Family Day this week or next week, I'm not, this upcoming Monday. And also, let's cheer for our Canadian Olympians. I believe we've got 2 bronze medals, and so I remember that one time was called a Canadian gold, and I never liked that, but I imagine if I ever won a bronze medal at the Olympics, I'd be hyper proud. So congratulations to those 2, and looking forward to more medals as the games advance. So moving into, is there anything I missed that somebody wants to highlight? Moving into closed session, moved by Councillor Bougie, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lang. Be it resolved that council convene to closed session at 8:40 p.m. to discuss the following items under Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act SO 2001. 2, a meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being discussed is C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land, specifically proposed acquisition of property, K, a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations, specifically instruction for negotiation. All those in favor? Carried. All right, closed session, moved by Counselor Jaworski, seconded by Counselor Bougie. Be it resolved that council rise and reconvene into open session at 9:24 PM without reporting. All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Counselor Bougie, seconded by Counselor Jaworski. Be it resolved that administration be directed to carry out all actions as specified in the closed session minutes. All those in favor? Carried. Confirming bylaw, moved by Counselor Jaworski, seconded by Counselor McDonnell. Be it resolved that bylaw 2026-13 being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 9th day of February 2026. All those in favor? Carried. Then adjournment, moved by Counselor McDonnell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lang. Be it resolved that Council of the Township of South Glengarry adjourn to the call of the chair at 9:24 PM. All those in favor? Carried. Have a good evening, everyone.